All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Billy Muzio, Bradley Stalder here for the Fantasy Football Fanalists. And tonight we had a change of plans. We originally were going to recap our 2020 running back projections, but that sounded boring. So tonight we'll discuss our thoughts on the Carson Wentz to Colts and Eagles trade, discuss three teams that are in salary cap hell, and then we'll cover some of the important dates coming up for the NFL free agency and give our predictions on a handful of the biggest names in the 2021 free agency class here. Bradley, anything fun, new, and exciting here in the Stalder house?
Well, this past week, it was my daughter Kate's kindergarten interview where she had to learn how to cut with scissors or show that she knew how to cut with scissors and color between the lines and write on lined paper and all those different things. So she did pretty well and we were very pleased. So hopefully she'll get into kindergarten.
That's awesome. Not rejected.
Nope. So we're in a good spot. Yeah. So that was the busy week. It's just I don't know. It's like the dog days of February right now, like the NFL, like as you talked about, Billy, like we have things to look forward to, but there's not like anything big news other than like the occasional big trade, like the Stafford trade a couple weeks ago or the Wentz trade. These are like small little storylines instead of like the deluge that is the regular season or even like the free agency frenzy or the NFL draft. Like we have to wait a little bit. So it's like the dog days of February. It's cold. It's been snowing pretty regularly here in Michigan for the last 3 weeks. And I'm kind of sick and tired of it. So the shoveling has been a struggle. The plows haven't plowed correctly. Just dealing with all the things that are cold. It's been 0 degrees on my drive to school. Life is it's push the rock season. It's push the rock season. Why am I pushing the rock? I don't know. I just got to do it.
Yeah, we're here in Bend, so we got our annual snow. We're not freezing over like Texas is. We have a little bit more winter preparation here in Oregon. It's a little bit more common here. And, other towns in Oregon are closing down because of ice, like Portland and areas that only get it every so often. But like Bend, like it's normal for us to get 8, 10, 12 inches in any given storm. So, we got about 10 inches this last week and all within like a 2-day period. And then it just kind of sat around ice on the roads like normal. But I mean, we're used to it. It's nothing extreme here. I mean, I'm still in like a light sweater and it's, snowing outside and I got a little bit more wool than most people do too. So I can kind of keep myself a little warm here.
That wasn't a shot at me, was it?
No. You have the baby face assassin face. So, you have uses for that face and I have uses for this face. And
this is true. My facial uses.
Correct. So, I mean, outside that, so we've talked about me getting my pilot license here, and that's been progressing well. So with the weather, it's hit and miss. So I've been able to go about once a week rather than twice a week, kind of depending upon the ice or how much snow is accumulated on the runway, or if they're able to get it off, or if it's windy or whatever it may be. But for the most part, I've still been able to progress in that training, which has been nice. And we just actually closed on the hangar today. So we bought a hangar. So
congratulations.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So I don't have a plane yet, but they say you need to be able to store it first before you buy the plane. And with how much our town's growing, this is the first hangar that's been available in our town in 3 years.
Wow.
So I was excited to scoop on it, and I already found a renter. So first year is gonna recoup some of that money that we just dumped into it, and I'm excited. It's a new hobby, and you know what? I'm gonna start traveling through the airs all over the U.S. And who knows? Maybe I'll talk my wife into going to Canada and visiting some of the degenerates that we know, or south of the border here. Who knows?
Speaking of the degenerates, if anyone missed our previous podcast, we had a lot of fun reviewing No Quitters Here League. I believe it was 12-team Superflex Dynasty League. It was a lot of fun, a lot of engagement. So we really encourage our listeners, if you're in a league, sign up on Patreon. We love reviewing leagues and giving feedback, and that really sparks a lot of discussion, not only in the league, but also trades and lots of talk between each other. So it's a lot of fun for us, a lot of fun for the league, and we just encourage our listeners sign up on Patreon or go to our website so you can buy a podcast. And the website, www.fffanalist.com, and sign up there.
That was a fun podcast last week. Like, I was talking to my wife afterwards, and I said, you know what? I'd be completely fine, like, not doing any of our other stuff that we do normally do on the podcast and just review these leagues. Because that was like, we had like 77 interactions in a 1 hour podcast with, well, oh, wow, my power just surged. I'm glad I didn't lose you. So we, you know, as I'm talking about, oh, this is normal for Ben.
Karma.
Yeah. Texas on you right now, right? But what was I saying before the power surged? How much fun it was. So, I mean, it was great. We had 77 interactions. People, you know, it was so much fun. I even had people, you know, at my business that, like, my employees watched it, and they're like, man, I had fun watching that, even like watching people make fun of each other and watching people chime in. They're like, everyone at work for like the next couple of days, we're talking about burning it down. And so, like, we have a fantasy league through our work, and people are making fun of each other, like, oh, you should have burned it down, and whatever it may have been. But it was already incorporated into our work atmosphere as well. So I had a ton of fun, loved doing them. Well, I'll say that, Bradley. I just wanted to share this bottle of wine I'm drinking tonight. I just spilled on the label, but it's called Uncle Billy, and this is pretty legit. So if it's any indication, I got it because he was hairy as a goat. He was a hairy goat, pretty big dude like I am, and then I just gave it a first sip here, and this thing's pretty big and bold. So I was like, man, this thing's perfect. It's big and bold. If you were to
compare that wine to an NFL player, who would it be?
Oh, man.
Put you on the spot.
For some reason, like, J.J. Watt just popped into my head. Like, you know, just a big kind of burly dude that's, you know, a little bit gritty and, a
little bit gritty.
So
a lot of grit. His middle name is Grit.
Yeah. So this is a pretty big, bold wine. So, I mean, I liked it. It's just got in the store this week, and it's pretty tasty. So I'm happy to be drinking the Uncle Billy wine here.
Nice. Yeah, no drinking for me, unfortunately, tonight. I had my adult beverages yesterday. Thirsty Thursday. That's just how it works. But Billy, we've got over the last few weeks, we've been managing a new fantasy set of teams. Like, it's a set of 2 leagues, but working together almost, like co-managing. Each of the leagues are its own format, so very different, and the payouts have to do with how both teams do. So it's been a lot of fun. One team, so just for our listeners, one league is super flex, 2 positions, and then I think 9 other flex positions. So It's all flex and super flex. And I'm the main manager, and you're co-managing that one. And then there's another league that you are the main manager of, and I'm co-managing, or we're finishing the draft right now, but it's 2 quarterback, 2 running back, 4 wide receiver, 2 tight end, no flexes, no super flex. And it's been interesting just seeing how all of these quarterbacks are flying off the board, the different values that each of the managers are making. And I'm surprised there has been such little inter-team squabbles that we've seen. Lots of wild trades, though. I think there have been more trade spots, like draft spots traded than not, at least in your draft.
Yeah, it's been like, 6 days, and we're only in around 9-10 now because it's just been trades galore. There's at least 3 trades per round.
And it's a 4-hour clock, so it's not like it's a 24-hour unlimited clock. Like, there's at least a timer on it, and it's taken forever.
It is. Now, I didn't get the name. So why is it Scooter and why is it Beans? I didn't. That one went over my head.
Yeah, it beats me.
Okay,
we'll have to ask Maddie C and Chris here.
Yeah, Maddie, I'm gonna motion that we do yin and yang. That would be, I think, a little bit more, to the making of the league with both of us managing in each league. It's kind of the balance of the two.
It is a balance. It was interesting. We went 0 RB starting lineup in the super flex league. We were talking with
Eric Bachman
about that one, and he was floored that we didn't draft a running back.
Well, you can. There's no running back position in the starting lineup. So like we're literally able to not have, you don't have to start a running back. So I mean, in a dynasty league, why?
Was Chase Edmonds.
It was like first running back selected like round 12, 13 or something like that. It's great though. But you know what? Wide receiver has longer longevity in dynasty. And so if you're not forced to start a running back, then why bother at that point? All the top ones went off the board when we picked it like 1.06. So at that point, there's no reason to reach for anything that
we went Kyler Murray.
For that super flex. So I mean, there's no reason to really take one at that point. And they just kind of with the way the board fell, and there was nothing of value.
Like Tyler Boyd in the 7th round, DJ Moore in the 5th round. Like I feel like all of those are values, especially given how young they are. And you mentioned the longevity, but also durability. I think wide receiver is significantly more durable, both short and long-term than running back. Sure, running back has like the spike weeks, and you can certainly win weeks with running backs, but I think you win seasons in that league with wide receivers that can consistently produce and not be out of the lineup. And, you can continue to draft and have the replaceability of the wide receiver.
Yeah. And it's not like you get, points per carry in that league or anything. It's a PPR league. So like, why? I'll stack running wide receivers all day. Yeah.
And it was a 1.75 tight end premium. So I think Darren Waller was our 3rd or 4th pick off the board.
Yeah. 3rd.
And, and so that was a big pick as well. Was it 3rd?
It was round 3. Yeah.
Round 3.
We had Calvin Ridley in the 2 in the duel.
That's right. Oh, this is the league where we drafted Carson Wentz, wasn't it?
No.
Did we?
No. I don't remember. I can
all these leagues are blurring together.
There's so many. Yeah.
At any rate, Carson Wentz has been a headline though here, Billy. He was traded from the Eagles to the Colts, and evidently there was no offer made by the Chicago Bears. That was the report. I think Ian Rappaport, Breer on Twitter sent the initial tweet out, retweeted by Rappaport. But the Eagles were the ones they were able to get Carson Wentz off the team, but not off the books. The Eagles, they're going to take a $33.8 million cap hit, the largest dead cap hit of any team has ever taken for a player, while the Colts will assume the balance of that $128 million extension, including $10 million guaranteed roster bonus by March 19th. I think this is my initial reaction was, it's an upgrade from Phillip Rivers, but I don't think it's a huge upgrade. I think there's a lot of risk for the Colts. But I think that the deal was fair given the flexibility that may be happening in the offer. You want to talk to our listeners about the contingencies of this offer between this deal between the Colts and the Eagles?
Yeah, so the Eagles will receive the 85th overall pick in this year's draft. The conditional 2nd rounder can also become a 1st rounder pick based on Wentz's playing time, and that's according to sources. So Wentz needs to play at least 75% of the Colts offensive snaps for 2021 in order for that 2022 conditional pick to convey to a 1st rounder. So I think that's pretty doable. I really do. As long as he's healthy and he's playing behind a better O-line now. And they have a very, very good running back now with Jonathan Taylor. They have some young weapons. They're probably going to get more because the Colts actually have the 2nd most cap space in the NFL. So to see them come out, I'm going to pull up the cap space right now. So now they're 5th after the trade. Sorry. So they have $53 million now still in cap space. So they're 5th overall in cap space. So they can add another weapon. And we'll get to free agency here down the list, and we'll talk about some wide receivers that could possibly go this way. But I definitely think that, reuniting him with Frank Wright, his previous offensive coordinator from the year that he was going to be the front runner for the NFL MVP, and, tore his ACL, bulldozing into the end zone. So to be able to reunite those two and to pair him with a good O-line, a solid running back, a really stout defense like we've talked about all year, honestly, like I'm not opposed to throwing $20 down on them going to the Super Bowl. I mean, it's a plus 2,600 bet right now, so it's a pretty good flip. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And he has to stay healthy, and I think he will. And I think this is a good trade for both teams. I really do.
Dan Orlovsky of ESPN said that this trade propels Carson Wentz into the MVP conversation. And while I think that is within the range of outcomes, I don't think this year.
No.
Like if I'm imagining the future, if I'm putting like my seeing eyes, my looking at my crystal ball, I think that first half of 2021, like the first 8 games, 6 games, whatever, is going to be rough for Carson Wentz. I think that when you're changing teams, the offseason is still going to be like virtual. That's what the NFL is preparing for. So,
but it's still a system he's familiar with. I mean, he worked under Frank Reich already, so he's going to be familiar with a lot of the terminology. He's going to be familiar with a lot of the system that Frank Reich's developed with the Colts. There's going to be a lot of similarities. I mean, yes, it's going to be different, but there's going to be a lot of transferable, plays, and I think that's what's going to help him bridge. So I don't think it's going to be a rough transition. I think the biggest transition itself is just going to be his confidence level and him regaining that, coming from Philly and where he was getting like rushed and pressured and beat and sacked and then, taking that and getting back into the swing of things here in the Colts. I think that's what's going to kind of set him up. But I wouldn't say anywhere near MVP, but I'm going to say he's going to be a potential, quarterback one, not the one, but a fantasy quarterback one in the 2021 season here. And I think that's within the range of outcomes.
Oh, I think so too. And I think he's a value right now in 2 quarterback super flex leagues. I think he's the type of player that if you have a solid quarterback, you may want to target him in a trade. This is probably, I know he was a low value. I think he's going to still have a little bit of low value, even though he's the presumed starter for the Colts. But mid-season is, I think, where he's going to start to really pick it up. And I think that's where he may be a league winner in fantasy football for next year, because we're going to see, you mentioned it, he knows the plays. It's about acclimating himself. I mentioned the short offseason or the limited offseason access to players, etc. But also, we don't know what the preseason, like those 4 games before the start of the season, are going to look like. Like, are they going to completely cut them out like they did this past season? Are there going to be 2, like how the union has talked about, like limiting the amount of preseason games, what that's going to look like? There's a lot of uncertainty. And so in that preparation, that's what I'm hedging, is that at least at the beginning of the season, Carson Wentz is perhaps not going to pay as much dividends. You shouldn't expect him to start out as a quarterback one. But then I think you're right, Billy. I think within the range of outcomes is quarterback one for sure. Given the weapons, Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell should be back. We don't know if T.Y. Hilton will be back, but he showed flashes at the end of last year. Like, where was T.Y. Hilton, right? He was out winning, or at least holding water, some fantasy managers at the end of the 2020 season. Jack Doyle, Trey Burton, like these are players who we know how Carson Wentz loved going to Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, the tight end position. Mo Alley Cox may be a value. But speaking of Ertz, I know you really think that Ertz may come to the Colts. Like, is this a reality now that Philadelphia has made the trade to the Colts?
I think it's a possibility still, but I don't think it's going to happen via trade. I think if it would have been like a package pair. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that it didn't happen via trade with the Wentz pieces, I'm a little more hesitant in with it happening via trade. I think it's more likely that it gets cut and then he becomes a free agent and he signs there, going back and reuniting the two. But I mean, my money's on Seattle, quite frankly. I think that, that it's a good landing spot. I think that, they're in need of a tight end, and I really could see them, going that direction. And I could see that happening via trade.
And Ertz, just if he's cut, that's $7.7 million on the dead cap. So that's that would take the Colts up, or the Eagles up to about $40 million. $42 million of dead cap just from those two players if they end up cutting Ertz. But I think they do want value from him. I think Ertz is not. I don't think Ertz is washed. But I don't think that him being in the Jalen Hurts system is going to be a value. Speaking of Jalen Hurts, like I know it's not on the outline, but does this secure Hurts in the quarterback one conversation?
One is, I think it's within the range of outcomes, but I'm not going to like lock it, and cement it in. I mean, there's a lot of good quarterbacks right now. Like if you think about it, like just off the top of your head, like you have Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, you have Kyler Murray, you have, Dak Prescott coming back. I mean, that's right there.
Aaron Rodgers,
Russell Wilson, like there's, 6 right there. Like you're already halfway through QB1, right?
Justin Herbert.
Exactly. Like there are a lot of names on here that, we're still going to have, some top end. Yeah, some top end talent. So it's within the range of outcomes. I mean, his rushing floor definitely helps, but I think that's this offense is going to have to get to know each other again. And, their new head coach in town, new system. Now, new quarterback at helm. Technically, he played a couple weeks, but it's a whole new slate. So I think it was needed. I really do. And I think that they can, move forward, but I do think it's within the range of outcomes. I'm not going to lock it in.
Yeah. Hurts. We talked about the rushing floor. I think that's what would propel him to the quarterback one, like a quarterback one scenario. He was throwing a little over 50% completion percentage. I think it was like 52 or 53%. But I mean, that's typical for a rookie just thrown in. Like we think about Josh Allen, we think about Andrew Luck, we think about a lot of other examples where, as a rookie, you're not going to complete a lot of passes. You're getting a feel for the offense. And Hurts was a dynamic player coming out of college and merited being a second round pick. But I think that if you're a dynasty player, you have to have like confidence in what you haven't seen yet from Hurts to buy into a value at quarterback one. There are some dynasty leagues that I've seen drafts of on Sleeper where Hurts was taken in the first round of Superflex dynasty leagues. And I think that's a little too rich. But if you're buying Hurts, it has to be, there's probably someone in a league that is a Hurts believer, and perhaps let them overpay in that instance for Jalen Hurts, at least at this point.
Agreed.
Okay, let's talk about salary cap hell for a second. The Eagles are on that list, but they'll be our second team that we talk about. First up, the New Orleans Saints, negative $65 million in possible in salary cap. It was just announced a couple days ago, I think it was yesterday, that the bare minimum salary cap is going to be $180 million. That may be a little bit higher just based on the actual monies coming into the NFL and the official number, but it's going to be at least $180 million. So based on that number, the Saints negative 65. So let's look at this. Let's look at this roster here. Who are some big cuts possibly? Looking at like zero dead cap, or maybe something that maybe a minimal number.
Quan Alexander is a zero dead cap and a 13 cap hit. And I know they traded for him, and he's a good a good linebacker, but I don't think that they're gonna, release him or anything. But I could see it, a restructure possibly happening. They got to work some magic, man. They really do. I mean, and Drew Brees already reworked his contract for them. So I mean,
they were what, 90 million?
They were at 90 million negative in the hole. So now they're at 65, or what? Yeah, 65. Yep. So there's a lot of things that they're going to have to address here. I mean, there really is. It's going to be some magic watching this team and how they're going to have to get to the end number.
Yeah, just looking at it, there's another, just throwing it out, Marshawn Lattimore at cornerback. He's at over 10 million salary cap hit, but zero dead cap. And
yeah, they're not going to get rid of Marshawn Lattimore though. There's no way.
He's very good, and especially with the Bucs playing, Lattimore was shut down against Mike Evans, and if that's your cornerback shutting down one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, you're opening yourself up. Yeah, it's gonna be
like someone like Demario Davis, outside linebacker there is like 2.3 million dead cap. He's 32, 33 years old. I could see something like that happening, but I mean, you still got a long ways to go after that 2 million. So I think I could definitely foresee some restructures happening here in the next coming months, because someone like Cam Jordan, as dominant as he's been, he didn't have the best season last year, and I'm not quite sure they're going to be wanting to pay him 18 million, right? And so I think that there's a lot of restructuring here that's possibly going to be happening. Where they're going to do it, I don't know, but I mean, look at Taysom Hill.
They regret? Yeah, I was about to bring up Taysom Hill. You think they regret paying Taysom Hill almost 11 million, and there's an 11 million cap hit now?
Yeah, I mean, his cap hit is actually 16 million. Dead cap is 11 million.
Yeah,
and it just come on, man. Like, why?
Yikes.
Like, that was a bad signing, and I don't even get me started on Taysom. I'm not going to do it, Bradley. I'm not taking the bait.
He's 8.5% of their cap.
Yeah.
Why are you paying, like, okay. So this is not a Taysom Hill rant. This is a New Orleans Saints rant. Why are you paying $16 million to what should be a backup quarterback? Doesn't make sense to me. He might be a running back one. He might be your tight end one. He might be, but he's not your quarterback one. Jameis Winston needs to be the quarterback of this offense. That's how you're going to get the most out of Michael Thomas. That's how you're going to get the most out of Emmanuel Sanders. That's how you're going to get the most out of Alvin Kamara. Like, this is still a win now team, even if and when, more likely when Drew Brees retires. So just looking at this, the Taysom Hill corner, like, do you think maybe trading Taysom Hill?
I don't think you're getting a lot of suitors. I think there's only one Sean Payton in this league that's willing to do that BS.
It's a head scratcher.
It really is.
Nevertheless, so at any rate, so that's the first team. We looked at a few players on the New Orleans Saints, discussed their contracts. Let's look at the Philadelphia Eagles. We mentioned them earlier with the Carson Wentz deal and talking about Zach Ertz as well, but there are some pretty huge cap hits here, dead cap, I should say, if some are decided. Like, I'm looking at Lane Johnson. He's at 39 million dead cap. There's no way he's getting cut. Jalen Reagor is only making 1 million, but he's $11 million dead cap. Like, we need to look at more of like and even Alshon Jeffrey. Like, if they try to move on, they can't move on from Alshon Jeffrey.
No, Marquise Goodwin's cut. That's 10% right there. That's 4.5 million. And then you can look at, somebody like Zach Ertz. That's if they cut him dead outright, it's 7 million cap hit, but or dead cap, but they still save 5 million versus the cap. So you're talking between, Zach Ertz and Marquise Goodwin, you're talking about almost 10 million already. So I think those two are inevitable. It's just a matter of when, not if.
And Derek Barnett.
Yeah, that one's, I could see that definitely happening, or a restructure of some sort. Right. So I think those three alone right there are nearly 15%. If they restructure it, if they cut them outright, which I don't expect, but if they did, I mean, that's 50% of their cap space between those three players. So I don't expect him to get cut, but I could see a restructure happening, and I could see something easily, Marquise Goodwin's cut. That's happening. I could see Zach Ertz being traded or whatever it may be, but I think that there's going to be definitely some shifting around here, but this one's a lot easier to hit. Like, the Saints are going to have a little more hard time.
Yeah, the Saints just had such an insurmountable cap issue that, like, we're just talking about casually the Philadelphia Eagles here.
Yeah. At number 2.
At number 2, with only that was again only 41 million. So it's the Saints had 50% more cap to cut approximately. Yes, they did. And then the third, the LA Rams. This is like beans. This is like minuscule. The Rams only need to worry about 25 million over the cap. So, yeah, It's like a third of what the Saints are dealing with here.
Yeah, and the Rams this is what the Rams do, right? I don't have no fear that the Rams are going to lose any key pieces really that are going to really make or break this team. They're going to easily get to this cap space. 25 million is nothing for the Rams to get down. And so I'm not too concerned with the Rams at all.
Yeah, no, the Rams, the quarterback isn't even I mean, they're still paying Jared Goff. That's the big elephant in the room still that will be for the next couple of years. But yeah, I mean, they're in a lot better space than the Saints. But these are all three. The Rams and the Saints, I think, are much more win now teams, whereas the Eagles, I mean, they have a path to the playoffs a lot easier, I think, than the Saints or the Rams. But their team overall is not as strong. And they need to take a good hard look in the mirror and see, like, okay, what are the pieces that are actually going to get us the wins? Like, is Alshon Jeffrey like still a piece? They just cut Deshaun Jackson today, so seeing Deshaun Jackson cut, that was that opens up Jalen Reagor. Like we mentioned, we were talking in the two teams, like whether we go after Jalen Reagor, and I felt it was too many Eagles because we already had Hurts and Goddard. But yeah, seeing Deshaun Jackson, that may open up a little bit more for Reagor, who didn't perform the way you wanted to, especially given that you probably drafted him around Justin Jefferson, either before or after in rookie drafts. So hopefully he can refine himself this year.
Definitely. Well, we have a few key dates popping up here. We have March 15th is the legal tampering period starts in the NFL. And for those who are unfamiliar,
it's my favorite period.
Yeah. And for those who
are tampering.
So those who are unfamiliar with legal tampering versus illegal tampering, legal tampering is a period. It's just a 2-day time frame where agents of unrestricted free agents can begin discussing with NFL teams. However, no specifics of the deal can be agreed upon or announced before the official start of free agency. And that official start of free agency this year is March 17th. So it is a 2-day period, and then a lot can happen in legal tampering period. So during that legal tampering period, agents and unrestricted free agents can begin conversations with teams during the periods, and they can kind of line things up, but they can't have any official numbers. They can gauge interest, and they can kind of talk to teams and feel other teams out. And then, once the tampering period's over, they can pin them against each other. And then that's when all the talks kind of start happening.
So there are some things that can't happen during the legal tampering period. However, a player cannot talk directly to teams. So it has to be, if a player acts as an agent, he cannot talk to other teams, and a player can't visit with a team besides the one he's contracted to in the previous season. So for instance, like we're talking Dak Prescott, who we do, the reports out of Dallas are that he's going to get franchised anyways, but Dak Prescott would only be able to visit the Dallas Cowboys, who he was signed to in the 2020 season. So that previous season, that's the only one. Additionally, agents of players who are not restricted free agents cannot talk with other teams. Therefore, players who are restricted free agents or exclusive rights free agents cannot have their agent begin conversations with team. They need to wait until the free agency period begins 2 days later. And for those for listeners who are unfamiliar with restricted versus unrestricted free agents, unrestricted free agents mean that the player can sign with anybody, any team. Restricted free agents, however, they can sign with any team, but that original team can match the contract. So that happened a couple years ago with Malcolm Brown. Malcolm Brown was a restricted free agent running back. He signed with the Lions, and then the Rams chose to match that contract, and he came back to the Rams. So just throwing that out there for our listeners.
Yeah, it definitely happens. So, and then after those tampering periods, or legal tampering periods, emphasis on legal, then we have a start of free agency. And I love free agency. Oh, did I say February? Sorry, March 17th is...
No, you said March 17th. You were good.
Okay. So March 17th is the beginning of free agency here. And at that point, teams can negotiate with their own upcoming free agents. They can use examples like the above with Dallas Cowboys that we just stated with Dak, and it pretty much starts opening up the windows there. So that's when teams can start doing franchise tags and transition tags, and we've kind of discussed this with Dak, and I foresee Dak actually getting signed this year. I think the longer they wait, the more expensive this is going to get. Noah Riddell kind of talked about that on our podcast at the beginning of last year about, hey, they missed the window. Next year it's going to be even more expensive now. And he hit the hammer on the nail. So I think that we're definitely going to see some franchise tags. I don't necessarily think Dak's going to be one of them, but there's teams have to make decisions. Right? Are they going to franchise tag them? Because that has to be done before March 9th. So March 9th is the franchise tag deadline. And then from there, at that point, if they're not tagged, it's going to be a contract.
Well, and our plan is to follow along with all of this free agency. We have a podcast specifically planned for that Friday, March 19th, to give instant reactions of different landing spaces for those free agents. We imagine a lot of dominoes that's that first wave, within the first 48 hours of free agency, just getting all of the dominoes in place and seeing the fantasy impact. So that's what we will discuss here in about a month. Approximately, actually, exactly 1 month.
We missed a comment here earlier. It looks like I just saw it. So it says, Magic, Breeze out, Taysom in, done. There's a lot more to it than that. We have 65 million in Magic pieces that they have to adjust to get down to the underneath the negative cap space that they have. But
yeah, the Saints are in a little bit of trouble. It's also interesting. So I know we kind of moved on from that, but just looking at, for instance, Jared Cook, like that came up. He has a $2 million cap hit, but he didn't play well at the end of last year. And there's been talk about him having played his last down. And if you're looking for, if you're a dynasty player and you're looking for a tight end, I feel like I'm the tight end whisperer. Like I definitely hit on a lot of those later round tight ends. That's why, Billy, maybe we should just wait, on drafting tight ends. I'll pick a good one for us off the waiver wire. But Adam Troutman was a rookie last year, came out of the University of Dayton, had a few flashes, and he's a beast. So Jared Cook is 33. I think he'll be turning 34 this year. It may be he may have played his last down for the Saints. And Troutman he was a 3rd round pick. So, well, if you're tight end hunting and you want to get a cheap one before the word gets out about Jared Cook, Adam Troutman may be a value.
So we have a few big names this free agency that's coming up here. I mean, let's start with Dak Prescott. Predictions. What's your predictions for Prescott?
I think he stays in Dallas.
I
think he stays in Dallas. I think that if the Cowboys ever get wind of another team being interested, they'll go hog wild. But I don't think anything is really materialized. And I if I'm another team, it requires me to think about the medical repercussions. Like the Dallas Cowboys have all of the medical information they need about Prescott and his recovery and the surgeries and working with that medical staff and medical team. They're familiar with him. And so that's what I'm thinking is that teams probably are a little hesitant given the fact that he's injured. Obviously he's extremely talented, but I think that the Cowboys, if they get a whiff of someone else being interested, they'll make sure to sign a longer deal or match whatever needs to be.
Yeah, I think they actually get a deal done this year. And I think all it was, if I remember right, was just a breakdown of either 4 or 5 years for the contract period. And the Cowboys wanted to spread it out more amongst 5 years for salary cap purposes. And Dak wanted it condensed into 4. So I think eventually we get something done here. Next name is Chris Godwin. What's your prediction of Chris Godwin?
I lean that he stays. I thought that he was going to leave. Like if you would have asked me a month and a half ago, I would have been like, he probably leaves. But a lot of talk out of Tampa is that they want to bring the band back together. and that the Buccaneers are set on bringing Godwin back. That's the report out of Tampa. I think they figure out a way to make it happen. If I am making a bet, this is probably Brady's last year, regardless. I think he came in with a plan to play 2 years in Tampa, not just be a flash in the pan, but actually give 2 very good years. And I think bring Chris Godwin solidifies the wide receiver core that's arguably one of the best receiving cores in the NFL. You've got Godwin, Evans, Antonio Brown. I mean, Scotty Miller is a good receiver. You got developing Tyler Johnson. Your other receivers are Gronk, Brait, and OJ Howard coming back. I don't know how many of those players are going to return, aside from obviously Evans and Scotty Miller. But I think that if I'm betting, most likely Chris Godwin returns.
I think so too. I think you hit the hammer on the nail. If you asked this before Super Bowl, I think it's probably more 60-40 him leaving than staying. And I think now it's probably flopped. We talked about the Brady mentality and what his mentality does to teams and winning championships and winning Super Bowls. And I could see Godwin accepting less money even to stay now. I could see even scuttle about Mike Evans willing to restructure his deal to keep Evans in-house, which would then allow them to do, a slew of other moves like keeping Levante David, who we'll talk about here soon, possibly Shaq Barrett. Who knows what they're going to do at running back here with Leonard Fournette. There's a lot of pieces here coming up for the Buccaneers, but I do foresee Chris Godwin re-signing.
And that was surprising. If we said a month and a half ago, didn't think so, but Godwin just fits that offense and fits what Tom Brady and Bruce Arians want to do. So, yeah.
Another big name, another big receiver is Allen Robinson.
That's a tougher one because I think he's gone. I don't foresee a future in Chicago. The two sides haven't talked since September. There's been at least chatter about Allen Robinson being signed or franchise tagged and then traded. But nevertheless, I think that a team like the New York Giants, I think that a team like the Miami Dolphins would be interested. I think that a team like the New York Jets, those are 3 teams that are very much in for developing whatever young quarterback that they have. Daniel Jones, Tua, or possibly Fields in New York. So, I mean, we'll see, but that's a big developmental piece, is having a wide receiver 1 on your team that your young quarterback can trust.
I think it's gone. I mean, you said it. They haven't even talked since September. Is that something you want to do with a guy that you want back? I don't think so. And I mean, they were literally in contract negotiations. You try to say that with dry tannins in your mouth 10 times. Contract negotiations with him and with Tariq Cohen at the same time. Who did they sign? They signed Tariq Cohen. So I think that was a clear sign that they don't want him back. And if I'm guessing, I think he signs with the Dolphins. I really do.
Yeah. And I mean, I thought another name on this list would also go to the Dolphins, Juju, but I think Juju also fits with maybe Green Bay. Juju Smith-Schuster. Someone needs to go to Chicago. That's the thing, is that one of these other big wide receivers is going to sign with Chicago, because Darnell Mooney, sorry, he's not going to be the wide receiver 1 there. So someone's going to replace Allen Robinson, and we're probably not going to like who's going to go there, but it's not going to be Allen Robinson as the wide receiver 1.
It could be Corey Davis.
Ugh, puke. Puke. Okay, let's talk about Kenny Gallaudet. So Kenny Gallaudet turned down a $17 million contract extension, so $17 million a year, reportedly from the Lions to stay in Detroit. He's not there for rebuild. He's a 27-year-old wide receiver coming off a lost season, but he's one of the best downfield big play threats. He doesn't like the nickname Babytron, but it's an homage to Megatron, the Hall of Fame wide receiver out of Detroit. And I think Kenny Gallaudet, he's gone, I think, he'll fit in a similar need as Allen Robinson, a team that has a young quarterback. So one of those 3 or 4 teams that I mentioned earlier, the Jets, Giants, Dolphins, they'll be looking for one.
Yeah, it's tough to see where he's going to land. I mean, you look at someone like the Giants, right? I think the Giants are in need of a wide receiver one. You have Sterling Shepard. They have a lot of money right now as well, and they're willing to pay for receivers, and they want the young quarterback to be successful. So I could see them going out and signing somebody here as well. Somebody like Juju, somebody like, Gallaudet. I think Gallaudet makes the most sense in those two, but I mean, don't be surprised too. Like if the Colts went out and signed somebody like Gallaudet, another big bodied receiver to pair with, their other big bodied receiver and to be able to really give Carson Wentz some options here in order to be successful.
Like imagine Gallaudet, Pittman, and then Paris Campbell in the slot.
Yeah. I mean, you have 2 big bodied receivers, and then you have somebody like Paris Campbell, who's very gadgety that can move around.
For sure. Now, we mentioned Juju earlier. There is a lot of uncertainty about the Pittsburgh Steelers situation. I think they need to make a decision about Ben Roethlisberger before they make a decision about Juju. Juju wants to return to Pittsburgh, so I'm at least giving it a sliver of a chance. I'm not saying no, like Allen Robinson, but I think that other dominoes have to fall before we figure out what's going to happen with Juju here.
I agree. I think, nope, that's it.
That's all I want to say about Juju.
That's all I want to say about Juju. I think we touched on him a little bit already.
Well, maybe he goes to a place where he gets more exposure. So like one of the New Yorks, either the Giants or the Jets. I mean, think of how he's already big on TikTok. Think of how much more he'll explode if he gets the New York spotlight.
TikTok to think of, man.
Absolutely. Look, it's about the brand and Juju. There was a tweet sent out today, and it was like Isaac Newton discovered the concept of gravity at 23, and then Juju subtweeted it and said, "Yeah, but did he catch a 97-yard touchdown when he was 20 years old on Monday Night Football? I think not."
Oh, Juju, man. Will Fuller. Where's Will Fuller going?
So if it's the Texans or the field, I'm going the field. But I think if there is a team most likely to sign him, it's going to be the Texans. I think there's partly familiarity. I think Fuller still has things to prove. I don't think the Texans have come out and said anything about Will Fuller coming or going. He's suspended for 1 game to start the next season. So a team in free agency would need to keep that in mind, that they're not going to be able to use him, and they're not going to be able to practice. They're going to be able to practice with him or incorporate him in a limited capacity compared to they're going to have to give other players snaps like preseason. They're going to have to give whoever.
He can still play in preseason. He just can't play in week 1.
Sure. But as you're getting exposure to other players, yeah. Although for my Chad Hansen shares, I hope he goes elsewhere.
I do think he goes elsewhere. I mean, look at the Packers made a big push for him at the end of 2020. And so I would not be surprised to see them sign Will Fuller here, appease Aaron Rodgers, because let's face it, they did a pretty shitty job drafting. And they didn't have a wide receiver they could count on in the end zone to really make the push for the end zone here against the Bucs. So not to beat down on Bradley over here about his Packers, but I truly think that they are in the market here for a wide receiver. They're going to address it, and I do not think that they do this twice, 2 years in a row, and stiff Aaron Rodgers. If they do, I could see Aaron Rodgers, going
pretty
AWOL.
Upset.
Yeah, going AWOL and all sorts of good stuff. So I think Will Fuller ends up in Green Bay is my prediction.
I mean, it's either him or your boy Corey Davis. You mentioned a bunch of times Corey Davis. The Tennessee Titans have gone out of their way to say that they do not expect to re-sign either Corey Davis or later on this list, Jonnu Smith.
Do you know how happy I would be if Corey Davis made it to Green Bay? You know me. I mean, we're in like what 20 leagues.
You would feel so vindicated.
I think I would feel like the all-seer. Like it took 5 years to get there, but here we are.
You wouldn't team up with Aaron Rodgers eventually.
I knew it.
God. Oh man.
So for those who don't know me or don't have listened to our pods that much,
for our new listeners, yours truly over here is a Corey Davis truther, and has been since he could have picked any player in the NFL, and he chose Corey Davis.
It was rookie year, and as one of those things where you're just too stupid to quit, as Bob Harris would say, and I'm just too stupid to quit Corey Davis. And you know what? I held on to him for years and years and years, and here we are, 5th year breakout, and boom, magic happened. And I could pray that he signs with Green Bay this offseason, and I would just be the happiest man in the world. I really would. That would be like a beautiful masterpiece, like a Picasso. If Picasso couldn't paint it any better, Bradley, if he painted Corey Davis next to Aaron Rodgers.
Ugh. I don't know. Anyways, so let's shift into get Billy away from this conversation. Jameis Winston.
I'm gonna buy you a Corey Davis Green Bay Packer jersey when it happens.
I will accept any free jersey. Jameis Winston, previously of the New Orleans Saints. I think he stays with the Saints. I think that's the Saints' intention. And with the prospects of possibly starting, it's a no-brainer for Jameis, who had been in the system, threw a 50-something yard touchdown pass anyways in relief of Drew Brees. I think this just makes sense for the Saints to keep him, and it makes sense for Jameis Winston's career.
I agree. I don't think he would have signed with the Saints thinking otherwise. And he wanted to learn, mentor under Drew Brees, learn the system, and then from there kind of hand the reins over. And you see the chatter about Drew Brees going to Winston afterwards, saying this is your team after the Super Bowl, or after they lost, not the Super Bowl, after they lost the championship game. So I think that there is
the baton is handed off.
The baton was handed right after they lost here. And so I definitely think that the baton is being handed, and Taysom Hill can revert back to his gadget fit $16 million position.
What a waste of money.
Waste of money.
Aaron Jones, so I don't think he'll re-sign with the Packers. There have been at least positive talk back and forth with the Packers and Aaron Jones. It doesn't seem to have obviously merited an extension at this point, given how AJ Dillon flashed a couple times, and Jamal Williams is also a free agent. So that's going to be interesting whether the Packers decide to keep Jones or Jamal Williams. If Jones leaves, an interesting suitor, Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they've, for the last 2 seasons, been extremely disappointed with the running back position. I think that with a lot of questions at quarterback, they need a dynamic player at running back. That would be a security blanket for either Ben Roethlisberger, who was he had one of the lowest yards per attempt in the NFL, and yet one of the highest passing volume. Just think of what Aaron Jones, who is a capable receiving back, could do as a 2.5 to 3 down back in Pittsburgh for 2 years. He's already an RB1. I think he has the overall RB1 possibility if he's in an offense like that.
Possibility. I hadn't thought about Pittsburgh before. I was thinking he was going to Miami. I'm taking a look here at the cap space that they have. I mean, the Miami Dolphins are 9th overall, $35 million in cap.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to sign a big receiver. I think they're going to sign a running back or draft running back. All the Myles Gaskins owner out there are biting their nails.
We're in a draft right now, and Myles Gaskin's still on the board.
I just can't pull the trigger.
Nobody wants to.
No, I mean, as well as he played, he had a fantastic year last year.
He did.
But I just don't think that they allow him to be the man. I don't think they give him that opportunity. And I think that they go out and they either draft a running back or they get someone during free agency because they have a lot of money to spend. And they have a lot of draft capital.
Matt Breida is not coming back. He doesn't expect to be re-signed. So and Jordan Howard's not there anymore. I mean, we saw flashes from Salvon Ahmed. Myles Gaskin obviously had a pretty big season, but
they're going to have to bring somebody in, whether it's via draft or via its running back, to add to the depth. And so at that point, I think whoever that name is a potential starter. And we see, Gaskins be the B now, or the running back 2 at this position, and more of a change of pace. And I definitely think for those dynasty players, I think that Myles Gaskins is a big risk right now. I mean, power to you if you gamble on them and they end up not taking somebody, but I just don't see that happening.
It's a big risk.
It's a very big risk.
Another player, another running back, free agent. I don't anticipate re-signing with Seattle, Chris Carson. A team that I don't know if you've thought of possible landing spots for Chris Carson, but one that stuck out to me, your 49ers.
Oh, I'd love it, but I don't think it'll happen.
Tevin Coleman, not good. Raheem Mostert, he's been injured a lot. They really moved away from Jerick McKinnon. Jeff Wilson has been here and there, pretty re-signed, but inconsistent in how they've used him. I think that there's a role there that they wanted Tevin Coleman to fill, and he just couldn't do it. And Chris Carson fills the rumble tumble role that they need.
No, not happening. It'll be Raheem Mostert, it'll be Jeff Wilson, and then they'll revert to Michael Hasty. I think they'll also draft it later in the draft, but I don't think it's anywhere near the top priorities. I think that if anything, they're going to address free agency via the secondary as well as quarterback. I mean, let's face it. I think we're a quarterback away from being a serious contender.
A quarterback and a new strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah, that's for sure. But
like half of your players ended up on IR, Billy.
So the Niners have $20 million in cap space, which positive. We're not in the negatives anymore here. So 16th overall, so middle of the pack, and what they have available for cap. I don't think they go out and spend money on a running back. I just don't see it happening. I think they use that money in a quarterback and divert those elsewhere, and takes a chance on a day 3 talent or day 4 talent, even in the draft for the running back, and kind of just adds to the depth that they have. And because we've seen this, they can play running back roulette. It doesn't matter who's starting there. I mean, Jeff freaking Wilson was a running back 1 at the end of 2020. I mean, Raheem Mostert, when he's in, is a running back 1 in 2020. I mean, Jermichael Hasty was like the most added running back once everyone else was hurt for my Niners. So I think it's a system. It doesn't matter who's there. Look,
do you think Chris Carson then to maybe the Cardinals?
I could see like the Bills.
Maybe the Bills.
Maybe the Bills. The Bills are a running back away from being really, really good. Singletary's shit. Excuse my language, but he sucks. Moss is not any better.
Moss is worse, I think.
TJ Yeldon's the best back on that running back floor. And it pains me to say that, but it's true. I mean, he can at least catch the ball too. Like all these other guys are like one-trick ponies.
Yeah, Moss and Singletary were perhaps the worst running back combination in the NFL this past year, and it wasn't like Singletary and Moss were out for like the whole season or anything.
So hear me out. If you morph those two, who are they? They're TJ freaking Yeldon, and they already have them.
And Yeldon, if you remember, he was like an RB2 for the Jaguars in the Blake Bortles days.
Yeah, he was. That's what I'm saying. Like you pretty much have TJ Yeldon on your squad. You have 2 combined into TJ Yeldon, so you need a running back. The Bills have to address it. I see Chris Carson going to the Bills.
Interesting.
It just fits the motto too. They're kind of that old school football. It's as much as Josh Allen took that step forward, McDermott is an old school coach, and he's going to want to also not have to do that next year. They're going to want to be able to rely on the ground game and get ahead and not have to worry about having Josh Allen throw for 40 freaking times a game.
So do you think Kenyon Drake stays with the Cardinals then?
I don't think Drake stays there either. I think we're going to have a whole running back and quarterback shuffle this year.
The shuffle.
Do
you think maybe the Green Bay Packers also are in looking for a running back? I mean,
if they can get him cheap.
If AJ Dillon is your like 1-2, wouldn't Kenyon Drake make sense as like a 2-3 down, second to third down back?
It's going to depend upon price, I think, with Drake, and because I mean, what does Green Bay have? They're -5 in cap space right now, -5 million. So
but they just cut 2 players. They cut Turner and they cut Kirksey today.
Yeah. So, and I don't think that number reflects that, but still, it's going to come down to price. And are you going to rely on AJ Dillon? How are you going to do this? So I don't think they have someone like that go to Green Bay. I think that they're probably going to, late talents also in the draft and go. Maybe they re-sign Jamal Williams because he's going to be cheap. Right.
I also think that, who's in looking for a running back? The Lions. And I know that there's a lot of DeAndre Swift, and he flashed. And I think he's a dynamic player, but I think that there's still, you're going to have Dan Campbell, the new head coach, is like, we're going to bite him off of the knees. And we saw Swift already struggle with injuries, and he split carries with Adrian Peterson. I know that it's a different head coach, but if you're thinking about increasing the rush volume, and DeAndre Swift has already struggled with they've already decided they're not going to go back to Kerryon Johnson. I think that there's at least a significant hole there for another running back to be useful.
They're also another team with negative cap space. So I think that we're going to see lots of
cheap contracts.
Lots of cheap contracts. We're going to see people get paid less, running backs in particular, because we've seen it happen year in and year out. They finally get paid and then they get hurt or they don't perform.
Well, think of how savvy the Joe Mixons, Derrick Henrys of the world were to get those deals this past offseason during COVID. Their agents were probably like, look, get the deal done now.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. You're going to get
less money.
Take less money, but you're not going to get nothing like you will in 2021. With the cap situation the way it was. So
yeah, I agree. There's a lot of stuff on here. I mean, looking at some tight ends here, we have Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry here in free agency.
Smith is gone from Tennessee.
Agreed.
I think the Patriots will be looking at Smith or Henry. I think they're a prime candidate. Izzo, Asi, and Dalton Keene were all flops this past year. Izzo was the leading receiver for the Patriots from the tight end position, and it was a nightmare. He only had a couple hundred yards receiving, if that. So I think that is a position that the Patriots address with whoever is at quarterback.
Yeah, I can see the Patriots being one of these. I could even see the Patriots landing someone like Zach Ertz even. That veteran presence back there. And I could also see another one of these names landing in Seattle and another one landing with the Colts. So I think between those 3 teams, we're going to see at least 2 of these guys hit within those areas. So a couple other pieces here. Let's move on from the positional offensive players, and let's talk about some O-line and some defensive players that are hitting free agency here. We have Trent Williams, who is all-pro tackle here for the yours truly, San Francisco 49ers. And man, he is an animal, but I think he stays. I think they re-sign him. I really do.
A team willing to give Williams a chance after previously the Redskins, now the Washington football team, unceremoniously treated Williams with such disrespect. Dude was dealing with cancer, and it seemed like that whole thing was mishandled by the medical staff, to then go to San Francisco and be a part of something that was special. The 49ers went to the Super Bowl the previous year, and then they get Williams, especially after who was the tackle that retired right before the trade? I can't remember, but he was a good tackle for the 49ers. Nevertheless, when you fill in a gap and you've got a team that took a chance on you, I could see there being loyalty there, especially in a tight market.
Yeah, and like I said, they're middle of the pack in terms of cap space, so they have the money to re-sign him. So I definitely foresee Trent Williams staying. Next we have is Taylor Morton. So, the tackle that we were talking about was Joe Staley. I just slipped my head for a minute. Taylor Morton here for the tackle for the Panthers is also here going to be a free agent. And PFF grade here is 90th percentile in pass blocking since 2018. And that's impressive.
So is Justin Fields going to get him back here, Billy?
Yeah, that's the word. Is they're saying? I don't think Justin Fields makes it all the way to the Panthers. Yeah, I could see them taking somebody like
Trey Lance,
or even Mac Jones. I'm personally hoping Mac Jones lands my Niners, but
I was made a couple of trade offers in dynasty leagues. People trying to offload Teddy Bridgewater, and I'm like, that's I don't think Teddy's the future. He's got 1 year of guaranteed money left on his contract, so yeah, Teddy more of the bridge quarterback.
Yeah, definitely a bridge quarterback here. Next we have is the Brandon Sheriff guard for the Washington football team, 97th percentile ranking on true pass sets and 90th percentile ranking in percentage of positively graded plays. He's never been graded 72.5 or lower in 6 years.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good. I think he's back with Washington.
Type of guy you want to keep around, especially if there's uncertainty at quarterback, or if you're looking to develop one, or you're trying to keep Alex Smith safe.
Yeah, usually teams take care of their O-line too. Like once they've developed them, they've done well. They keep them. They don't let them leave unless you're the Washington football team. But here we are talking about Washington football team.
Here we go.
so
this is a new regime for the Washington team.
It is. Next is Justin Simmons, safety for the Broncos, and he made the Don's list here for our article here on the Fantasy Football Fanalists, and I think he stays with the Broncos again. I really do.
Yeah, we're looking at Justin Simmons and Anthony Harris, both safeties. And over the last few years, safety has been a real tricky position for free agents because some safeties sign right away and others, like they wait even into the mid-season, and it gets really dicey. For some reason, teams just aren't willing to sign a lot of the big name free agent safeties right away. Some of them hang out. So yeah, I think with a tight market, you're looking for familiarity. And I think that both Harris and Simmons are most likely to stay, given how the market is going. And over the last few years, just seeing those trends.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Anthony Harris, I think, is maybe the only one out of those two more likely, I should say, to probably move on. Mm-hmm. Couple teams in particular. I mean, Washington football team here. I even think my Niners. I mean, no, they just re-signed.
Well, the Washington football team has Curl and Landon Collins at safety still.
Yeah, you can shift some to free safety, right? You can play some and stack that secondary, and then you have a really stout defense. And then at that point, you can go cheaper.
Washington already has a stacked defense, too.
They do. And then you can go even stouter, and then you can kind of get away with some of the quarterback errors that you may have coming forward here. So I think it's a situation to monitor. Linebacker here we have is Levante David. I think.
Did you hear the quote? Did you hear the quote that Brazil?
Your ass ain't going anywhere.
Notice how I set you up to say that. As an alley-oop. Yeah, I anticipate that David stays with the Bucs too.
I do. And I think, like we said, we'll probably see some contract
bring the band back together.
Being reworked, band being brought back together. I think that all of it will kind of fall into place, but I see that Levante David being one of those pieces. The one I'm not so sure on is Shaq Barrett. I think he got the ring. I think he's going to want the money now. And I think they let him walk. I really do.
We'll see. He was already franchise tagged. If he's franchise tagged again, it's going to be closer to $20 million. The Buccaneers do have a lot of cap space, or at least a lot of cap flexibility. It seems that they can work with. There are some players we don't anticipate.
$27.7 million.
Right. And I anticipate that
there's a lot of names though.
Well, I anticipate there will be some reworking, as we said, of contracts. And I think that maintaining a certain level of the continuity on that defensive line is important. And Barrett has proven his value to them. So yeah, I think he can leave, but if I'm betting, probably stays. We'll see. It's close, though.
Yeah. The last two we have here are safety Marcus Williams, and then we have Richard Sherman.
Williams probably goes, just given the cap situation of the Saints. They're going to have to fill in.
There's no way to re-sign him.
Yeah, safety in other places. But Richard Sherman, the 49ers, I don't think they'll re-sign him.
No.
And I think that Sherman is willing to bet on himself, probably to a team that is looking to be a playoff contender. So, I mean, even the Miami Dolphins were very close. And you wonder if he would take on a leadership role in that clubhouse. That would be really positive. And he can still play. So
Sherman, I think odds right now are the Bills is his landing spot.
Okay.
But he just had his worst year in his career. I mean, 67.2 coverage grade on PFF on just 332 snaps. It's his lowest grade ever. And that was followed up by his best year ever in 2019 when they went to the Super Bowl. So it was literally Jekyll and Hyde seasons.
He struggled with injury last year, and perhaps he played injured just to, show how tough he was, especially given how all of the other defensive players on the 49ers were all dropping like flies. So, I mean, he's probably still playing for a contract. Like, you wonder whether it's betting on yourself to play or you're betting on yourself from previous seasons that'll get you that next contract. So, and he's a smart dude. Sherman's a smart man. So I assume that's the bet that he made, was he'd rather play injured than not play and just let 2019 try to pay for 2021.
Yeah. And everybody, these are just a few of the names. There's 50 to 60 free agents this year in 2021.
It'll probably be more. We'll anticipate a lot more cuts, and as the salary cap becomes a clearer, we'll see, a lot of cuts and a lot more free agents. And as JJ Watt said, we skipped JJ Watt here, but as JJ Watt said, free agency is wild, and it's going to be wild. And I anticipate that. I think who was the player? There was one of the players. Maybe it was Marlon Humphrey or another player tweeted out that they anticipate there's going to be a couple super teams because a few players are just going to accept minuscule contracts who are cut just to be on a playoff team.
Yeah. I mean, we're starting to see it more and more. It's kind of the Gold State NBA Warrior mentality. Yeah, exactly. Take less to gain more. And I think we're going to start seeing it more and more and more in the NFL now, as well, as players willing to accept less to get a ring. And it's finally, they're playing for pride rather than for money. It's about time that the tide has turned a little bit. At the same time, you don't want it to ruin the sports and create super teams, but you also, want to see, some good football be played. And I'm excited to see it happen. Well, before we wrap things up, I want to remind everyone to head over to our website at fffanalist.com. We have been getting up articles a couple times a week, and we also have updated dynasty rankings with IDP rankings as well as positional rankings. And we'll have more rankings up soon here. We're going to have our big board up soon, and we're going to get our early redraft rankings up here shortly as well. There's a lot of content on there now to keep you busy, though, for hours.
Projections will be coming, especially post free agency, post the draft. Those will be updated. Really excited about making a few changes for this year, just in noticing trends and whatnot. So really excited for those and discussing how those will pan out. And then, of course, discussing where our rankings are. Billy, we're going to spend a lot of time this offseason discussing player rankings and seeing where the trends are, who are some values based on ADP, things like that, players that we're targeting. Really excited to fill out that website as we're going into the 2021 season.
Definitely. So as we finish here, make sure to follow us on Twitter at FFFanalyst, at FFMusio, at FFStalder, or on Facebook at Fantasy Football Fanalist. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not done so already. And that YouTube channel, I changed the name here because we were having some SEO issues. It's at Fantasy Football Fanalist now, so keep it simple. We're trying to eliminate the back and forth between the FF analysts and the fantasy football analysts. But if you subscribe there, it'll help us reach 100 subscribers, and then we'll be able to customize our URL channel, which is what we're shooting for. So please go ahead over to YouTube, give us a follow or a subscribe, I should say, and help us out. Make sure that you also tune in Friday here next week here. That's going to be Friday, February 26th. We don't know what we're going to talk about yet. So we're just going to play it by ear. Bradley and I'll figure out.
We'll see if there's some big news between now and then, but also, we've got our, we might even look at more free agents, maybe some speculation. Maybe there'll be some cuts between now and then, some possible landing spots, maybe some rookie developments.
Yeah. And we also have a collaboration here brewing between us and the CPMC podcast for a league review. We're going to do so the CPMC podcast is also a dynasty forecasting podcast, similar to what Bradley and I did last week with a review of a league. And we're going to collaborate together here and do a 4-man review on the yin and yang leagues. By the way, Matt, that's what we're calling it, yin and yang. I'm not even asking anymore. I'm telling you. And it'll be nice to see kind of a 4-man review on that and get 24 people together on this. I think it'll be a great collaboration.
Lots of fun.
So everybody, we'll see you back here next week. Good night. And thanks for tuning in. And hope you have a fantastic weekend.